Welcome to It's Good to Be Smart. I'm your host, Dr. Dave Mulder. I love to learn new things, and I hope you do too, because it's good to be smart. Today we're diving into something we think we all have a pretty good idea about, but when you really stop to think about it, can get pretty tricky. Here's the question. What makes something alive? In this episode, we're going to think through the difference between living, non-living, and dead things, and why understanding this difference is key for understanding life science. And to do that, we're going to explore how all these fit together in an ecosystem. So, first off, what's the difference between living and non-living things? Well, living things are things that are alive, like us humans, animals, plants, and even tiny bacteria. These things have characteristics that make them different from non-living things. What do I mean by characteristics? Well, here's the thing. All living things share a set of key traits. For example, living things grow and develop. A seed grows into a plant, and a baby grows into an adult. Living things can produce offspring, whether it's through seeds, eggs, or other methods. Living things need energy to survive, and they get this energy from food they eat or by making their own food. Living things need raw materials like oxygen, water, and minerals to help them with all the functions they have to do to stay alive. Living things have a lifespan, which means there's a certain length of time they're likely to remain alive. Non-living things, on the other hand, don't have these characteristics. Think about things like rocks or metal or a plastic bottle or a bicycle. These things don't grow, reproduce, or eat or die. They just are what they are. Non-living things are not alive, and they never were. Dead things, on the other hand, are not alive anymore, but they were once alive. A dead tree, for example, used to be alive. It grew. It took in sunlight. It created seeds to grow more trees, and it lived in the forest as part of an ecosystem. But now, it's no longer living. Here's an important thing to keep in mind. A dead thing was once living. It's like the difference between a person who used to live but isn't around anymore. We'd say they passed away. And a rock, which was never alive in the first place. This might not seem like a very important distinction, but think about something like a wooden desk. Is the desk dead or non-living? You might start to think of the desk as dead, because if it's made of wood, it's made out of a tree that was once alive but is no longer living. But the difference is the desk was never alive. It's made out of dead material, wood. But the process of creating the desk involved turning that dead material into a useful, though non-living object. Things that are manufactured are usually considered non-living, even if they're made out of dead materials. Most of the time when we're thinking about non-living things in the context of life science, it's because those non-living things are important factors in the environment of the living things. So let's think a bit about how living, non-living, and dead things can interact. Let's consider the example of an ecosystem to understand all this better. An ecosystem is a community of living things interacting with each other and with the non-living parts of their environment, like air, water, minerals, and soil. In an ecosystem, you'll find living things, non-living things, and dead things all working together to keep the system balanced. A forest is a great example of an ecosystem. Picture a forest and think about the living, non-living, and dead things that you might find there. Living things in this forest might include trees, plants, squirrels, birds, and insects. Non-living things would be the sunlight that helps the plants grow, the rain that falls, and the soil that holds the roots of the trees. Dead things could be the leaves that fall to the ground in autumn, or a dead animal that was once part of the ecosystem but is no longer alive. Now, these dead things, like fallen leaves or animals that have died, don't just disappear. They play an important role too. They decompose over time, which means they break down and become part of the soil, helping new plants grow. So, even though they're no longer living, dead things contribute to the life of the ecosystem. The whole ecosystem actually works because there are living, non-living, and dead things all there together. The living things grow, reproduce, and interact with their environment. Non-living things don't have these abilities. They just exist. But they provide things that the living things need in order to survive and thrive. And dead things were once alive but are no longer. But even though the dead things aren't alive, they still have an important role in the ecosystem, helping to recycle nutrients and provide the conditions for new life to thrive. I hope you now have a better understanding of what makes something alive and how the living, non-living, and dead things in an ecosystem can work together. Before we wrap up this episode, here are a few fascinating facts about living and non-living things to stretch your brain. Living things and non-living things are both made of the same materials. The atoms and molecules that make up living and non-living things can be identical. Rocks are made of calcium and iron, carbon and oxygen, and so are your bones, blood cells, and muscles. But while your body is clearly alive, the rocks are not. There are some things that scientists have a hard time classifying as living or non-living. Viruses are an interesting example. They have some of the characteristics of life, but not all of them. So they aren't really considered fully alive in the traditional sense. Maybe it makes sense to think of them as kind of being right on the edge in a gray area between living and non-living. All living things have a lifespan and will eventually die, but there are some living things that have extremely long lifespans. Many scientists consider the longest living organisms on Earth to be a grove of aspen trees in Utah called Pando. Pando has a shared root system that is thousands and thousands of years old, and new aspen trees keep growing out of that root system right up to today, even as old trees die, fall to the ground, and get recycled into the soil. So this is kind of intriguing. The shared roots are definitely alive and have been for a long, long time, but the individual trees that grow up out of it live and die. So are these aspen trees that make up Pando the oldest living things in the world, or not? It's a wonderfully weird world out there. So let's sum it up. What do we know about living, non-living, and dead things? Well, living things are all the things that have those characteristics shared by all of life. They grow, they eat, they reproduce, and they can die. Non-living things aren't alive and never were. And dead things were once alive but aren't any longer. Understanding the difference between these is helpful as we begin our exploration of life science topics. Thanks for joining me for this episode, and nice work leveling up your brain power today. Remember, smart isn't something you are, it's something we become as we're learning. So keep listening, keep learning, and keep getting smarter every day. It's Good to Be Smart is created and produced by me, Dr. Dave Mulder, with the support of the National Science Foundation through the Robert Noyce Teacher Scholarship Program. Subscribe to this feed so you'll never miss an episode, and check out our home on the web, goodtobesmart.com. Until next time, keep asking questions, stay curious, and keep learning, because it's good to be smart.